Hello and welcome to the Business Standard Morning Show. I'm Swapnil Joglekar. It's the 27th of June 2023 and here are the top stories for the day. Has monsoon solved this year's food inflation problem? Who is Wagner Group chief Yevgeny Prigozhin? Will the momentum in the primary market sustain? And what is AI hype? After a late onset, monsoon seems to be finally making good time. It has covered almost 80% of the country, arriving in Delhi and Mumbai at the same time. While the rains are again giving the civic bodies a tough time, the policymakers are a relieved lot. But how long will this relief last? Has monsoon solved this year's food inflation problem? Debar Gasanyal brings you the answer.
A lot hinges on monsoon in India, where about 50% of net sown area still relies on rains. A deficient monsoon not just hit farmers hard but also the entire population as food prices soar. And as elections are won and lost over inflation, it also keeps the government on its toes. India's retail inflation eased to a 25-month low of 4.25% in May, giving the RBI the elbow room to hit the pause button on repo rate. The central bank's rate hikes by a cumulative 2.5% since May last year, coupled with government efforts, had helped bring down the inflation from a peak of 7.8% in April last year. But Governor Shaktikanta Das is still circumspect. In an interview to news agency PTI, he said, and I quote, "We continue to be watchful on the inflation front. We expect inflation to be at 5.1% in FY24 and we will continue to strive and get it down to 4%. End quote. One of the reasons for his concern is the potential effect of El Nino on the monsoon. While the governor pointed out that food inflation has come down and stated that the Food Corporation of India releasing wheat and rice stocks have also helped, he seemed wary of the impact of impending weather phenomena. The Indian Meteorological Department or IMD has predicted a normal monsoon this year. But private forecasting agency Skymet said that the June-September rainfall is likely to be below normal. So, when the monsoon arrived a week late in Kerala on June 8, fears of deficient rain started gaining ground. But the southwest monsoon has strongly picked up pace over the last 2 days, covering almost all major parts of the country, including Delhi and Mumbai. IMD officials told Business Standard that there is a possibility that monsoon will cover the country by the first week of July, which is normal. So, will the pickup in pace be enough to get the monsoon back on track to fulfill India's water needs for the Kharif season?
I think it's early days because it's only June, and I think it's true that monsoons have been deficient by a little less than 30% as per the latest estimates. Now, I think I must point out that what matters for agriculture production is how it rains in July and in August. So I would say that there is a risk from El Nino, but I think the monsoon behavior doesn't depend on El Nino alone.
So far, rainfall distribution has been uneven. According to the data from a recent Bank of Baroda report, as of 25th June, 23 of 36 meteorological divisions, or 61% of India's total land mass, received deficient or large deficient rainfall. These 23 divisions include Maharashtra, Karnataka, and West Bengal, among others. Delayed monsoon can affect the cropping pattern in the country. The total area under cultivation is lower than the last year by 4.5%, according to the report. Experts believe, therefore, that while the prediction of a normal monsoon is a necessary condition for a regular Kharif harvest, it is not really a sufficient condition. Moreover, the sowing season for Kharif crops, which is considered the main farming season in the country, has now been delayed. How then does this bode for food inflation in India?
Inflation has so far pleasantly surprised. Food inflation is at 2.9%, but it's a very volatile, most volatile component of inflation. The Rabi harvest has been good, so that will reduce inflation in wheat. But the challenge is more on the rice front, because rice is significantly unirrigated still. By the way, rice inflation has already been inching up, and globally is also high. So I think from that perspective, it's important. Spices inflation is in double digits. Fortunately, I think you have the edible oil inflation under control, because that's largely imported and the factors are favorable there. So I would say that to bring cereal inflation down, monsoon is very, very important.
So, is India ready to tackle the challenges that an irregular monsoon may throw up towards the larger goal of tackling food inflation?
There has been a delay in monsoon. So a lot of sowing is yet to take place. That itself will be reducing the yields by nearly 5 to 7 to 10%. Stocks of grains, particularly if you talk of the major grains, that is rice and wheat, I think we have touched a very high level, almost 320 million tons of food production. So our godowns are today full. So that itself is a now check where they will control the inflation. I don't find that El Nino will have a sort of a major challenge that the Indian agriculture, because we are not totally dependent now only on Kharif. We have substantial Rabi, and 40-45% area is under irrigation.
Experts point out, therefore, that it's too early to be sure that the recent pickup in monsoon will be enough to keep food inflation in check, and a more uniform and consistent distribution of rainfall will be key. However, they also emphasize that over the last few years, government measures have provided strong buffers against the vagaries of monsoon, and India seems well prepared heading into the Kharif season.
She'll soon be quoted on the front page. Business Standard.
Last weekend, when the monsoon clouds were progressing towards Delhi, Russia was grappling with a different kind of march towards the capital, Moscow. It was that of heavily armed Russian mercenaries led by Yevgeny Prigozhin, a former ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin. While the march was cut short and Prigozhin was forced to leave the country, the development has certainly exposed chinks in Putin's regime. In today's special segment, Tariq Ahmed takes a look at the controversial Wagner leader and tells how he came into prominence in Russia.
For the first time in decades, a column of hostile army came close to the striking distance of Moscow, forcing Russia to take emergency steps. And it did not come from warring Ukraine. The rebel army was being led by a former ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin. The man leading the pack of hundreds of rebels of private military group Wagner was Yevgeny Prigozhin. It captured one of the biggest cities in Russia, Rostov-on-Don, and had been steadily marching towards Moscow. Prigozhin was upset, and he claimed that the Russian military had deprived the Wagner group of supplies of food and ammunition in Ukraine. The furious Prigozhin ordered his private army to march toward Moscow to topple the Russian military leadership. But negotiations followed. The march of Prigozhin came to a halt at about 200 kilometers from Moscow, and he retreated. As part of the deal, Prigozhin has been exiled to Belarus, and he is being investigated by Russia's Federal Security Service. As the future of Wagner's leader remains uncertain, his past and ascent into prominence has been making news for the last few days. Yevgeny Prigozhin was born in St. Petersburg in 1961. He went to a sports academy to be a cross-country skier, but he didn't make it to be a professional skier, and after finishing the school, he fell in with a crowd of petty criminals. They used to rob people in St. Petersburg, and during one of those attempts, 18-year-old Prigozhin was caught and was convicted to spend 13 years in prison. After his release in 1990, Prigozhin started selling hot dogs prepared from the kitchen of a family apartment in St. Petersburg. Prigozhin had an incredible ability to befriend people from higher up. In 1995, with the help of his contacts, he opened a wine shop and a restaurant in St. Petersburg. The high society and political leaders of St. Petersburg frequented Prigozhin's restaurant as it became famous for fine dining. One of his frequent customers was Vladimir Putin, who was then the deputy mayor of St. Petersburg.
So in that period from the mid-90s onwards, he became a very familiar figure in St. Petersburg and also someone who was in the good books of Mr. Putin at that time. And there was also a power play in the final years of the Yeltsin presidency when Mr. Putin was positioning himself to take over. And that is where I would say that this proximity developed, and Mr. Yevgeny provided a number of, I would say, services, if you could put it that way, for Mr. Putin.
With his influence, Prigozhin was able to get contacts to cater for major government events. When Putin became Prime Minister of Russia in 1999, he brought foreign dignitaries to Prigozhin's restaurants. In the next step, Prigozhin acquired bigger contracts worth 200 million euros to provide food to schools in Moscow, and in 2015, he won a massive contract worth of 1 billion euros to provide food for the Russian army. When Russia seized Crimea in 2014, Putin was exploring the idea of plausible deniability. Several private military groups started emerging, and Wagner was one of them. To build the Wagner army, Prigozhin recruited prisoners. The military provided land for the Wagner in southern Russia, and in 2015, when Putin sent the Russian army to Syria to support Bashar al-Assad, Prigozhin won the contracts for food and supplies and also dispatched the Wagner troops into Syria. Later, they were also deployed to several countries in Africa, and Wagner troops have been infamous for the cruelty they unleashed in those places. Wagner Group and Prigozhin rose to prominence when Russia started to invade Ukraine last year. Around 50,000 Wagner soldiers have been fighting in Ukraine, and they played an important role in the war efforts of Russia here. But after the failed mutiny attempt, now Putin has accused Prigozhin of treason, and he has been exiled in Belarus.
He has, in a way, backed down because he wanted the Russian defense minister to be sacked. That was one of his principal demands. Whereas today, on Monday, the news coming out of Moscow is that the defense minister is very much in charge and he's visiting his troops in Ukraine and so on. So I would say that the future for Yevgeny is uncertain. Once President Putin is able to establish his control again, after all, he has many levers of power, my sense is that they would try and corner Yevgeny Prigozhin.
But definitely there are red flags in terms of the way he reacted, the way he shot down his army, shot down aircrafts, helicopters, how far he got into Russia. Those are big concerns for Russia, which was considered one of the most strongest armies after United States.
According to experts, the future of Yevgeny Prigozhin is uncertain and definitely not as promising as it used to be. That's why American political scientist Ian Bremmer called Prigozhin a dead man walking.
Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, has described this rebellion as another crack in the Russian facade. The Russia-Ukraine conflict has dealt a big blow to the world economy. India too has been feeling the heat. In FY23, IPO filings declined nearly 54%. But this week, it seems, investors will be spoiled for choice as 7 IPOs are set to hit the markets. The push comes amid a broad-based market revival. But as global uncertainties keep secondary markets volatile, will this momentum in the primary markets sustain? Puneet Wadhwa and Nikita Vashisht find out in our next report.
India's fundraising activity, especially via primary markets, is gaining steam. As many as 7 initial public offers will hit the markets this week, of which 3 IPOs, Idea Forge, Scient DLM and PKH Ventures are main board public offers, while the other 4 are SME IPOs. In all, these firms are eyeing a fundraise of over 1600 crore rupees in just a few days. Secondary markets too have been buoyant of late as the Sensex hit a fresh high, propelled by a broad-based buying. A main board IPO is one where companies raise a minimum of 10 crore rupees, while the minimum threshold for SME IPOs is 1 crore rupees. Analysts, however, believe it may be too early to conclude this as a primary market revival.
That it will be too early for us to comment that primary market revival is on card, because still 39 IPO issues are such where the SEBI observation have already been received, which are valid also, but they are yet to come for listing on the main board. So what we think that when these number of IPOs come for listing on the main board, then we can see some sort of a momentum in the primary market. That is also we are reaching the quarter end of FY24, first quarter ending of FY24, where the certain companies has to face certain deadlines regarding their financials which they have posted in their DRHP.
So far, in 2023, 6 companies have raised around 9,800 crore rupees through initial public offers. Of these, investors were warm to the issues of IKEO Lighting, which was subscribed 67 times, and that of Mankind Pharma, which was subscribed 15 times. These two are also the only IPOs which clocked double-digit listing gains. Meanwhile, grey market trends suggest primary issues of Idea Forge and Scient DLM may deliver listing pops in the range of 40 to 65%. Nishit Master of Axis Securities believes sustained listing gains and stable secondary markets are needed to push primary market offers.
Interest in primary market will revive. People need to make money in 1 or 2 issues to get that whole confidence back in the primary market, which should happen in a couple of months' time. I think some of the sectors which are doing exceedingly well, hospitality, auto ancillaries, should see the first light of day in terms of supply from the primary market. Again, capital goods could be one more space where we could see companies coming back to tap the primary market.
Clearly, primary market is revving up, but significant listing gains are still needed to keep the IPO buzz intact. On June 27th, IPOs of Idea Forge and Scient DLM will be on investors' radar. Besides, global cues and stock-specific action will guide the secondary markets.
He's making plans for an early retirement. Business Standard.
Asset managers, meanwhile, are racing to develop artificial intelligence solutions that can help their clients get more returns. People are talking about AI's application in almost every field. AI, it seems, now has a baggage of expectations to carry, and a new term has been coined to explain this. It is AI hype. Today we explain what AI hype is.
Amid the big benefits to businesses and consumer applications, a major contributor to the accelerated adoption of AI today is the hype around it. The AI hype shoots from the growing interest in the emerging technology to the extent of overemphasizing its capabilities and potential application. This often leads to inflated expectations about what artificial intelligence can currently achieve. Remember all the sensation around Hanson Robotics, Sophia, and its intriguing conversations. It is capable of social learning and was granted Saudi Arabian citizenship. But the AI-powered robot can only think in a limited capacity. Hanson itself had admitted that Sophia's development is more akin to a toddler than an adult with consciousness or intellect. Such hypes only inflate expectations and misrepresent the capabilities and limitations of AI. The two letters, AI, are also used loosely in marketing and media associated with various technologies. Apart from exaggerated claims, the hype can also appeal to developers to oversell technology without sufficient details or fail to foresee the risks and impact of an AI product. Unfounded claims about the scale and power of AI, say in cybersecurity, healthcare, data science automation, etc., without rigorous testing can contribute to the hype. AI also has an ML problem. Most people conceive machine learning as AI. While the two are related, machine learning is only a subset of artificial intelligence that enables a machine or system to learn and improve from experience. Harvard Business Review points out that putting together all machine learning initiatives under the AI umbrella oversells and misleads, contributing to a high failure rate for machine learning business deployments. However, generative AI is adaptable for various applications, and it has not faced any regulatory scrutiny yet, unlike Web 3.0. This has created investor interest. Indian generative AI startups have raised $31.8 million in 4 deals in 2023 so far. In 2022, such investments amounted to $409 million through 14 deals. Merely using an AI tool in the development process is not the same as a product having AI in it. And if something goes wrong, one can't just blame a third-party developer for the failure, warns the US Federal Trade Commission in a recent blog. Amid all the hype about artificial intelligence, it's in the interest of developers to abstain from bias, acts of deception, and over-promises.
I'm backed by the nation's trusted bank, SBI, the banker to every Indian.
Google has claimed to have developed AI which can design computer chips in less than 6 hours. Humans take months. That's all for today. Catch the next episode of The Morning Show tomorrow. Thank you for watching.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.